More than just music on Buzz 96.3 FM.
Well, good morning and welcome to 96.3 Buzz FM. We have in the studio today the Honorable Minister responsible for Finance and Economic in Vanuatu. Honorable John Salong is joining us. Good morning and welcome to 96.3 Buzz FM. Now, Minister, today we are going to focus more on how the government of Vanuatu is working to collect revenue to make sure that Vanuatu is healthy financially to run this country and to assist the people of Vanuatu in different projects in the country. Now, we're talking about first. You've been in the as the Parliament member for Ambrim constituency since 2020 up until now. So you've been through two legislature so far up until now that you were elected as a member of parliament and chosen as the Minister of Finance and Economic of Vanuatu.
Yes, as you know, I came into parliament around the 28th of April 2020. And then there was a dissolution of parliament about August of 2021. And election was in October the 13th, 2021. 2022. Now we're in 2023, so I managed to get back in. And I've been Minister of Finance and Economic Management since November the 4th, when the new government came in under Honorable Alatue Ismail Kalsakau, the Prime Minister. And so I've been in that position since November 4th, 2022.
Up until now.
Yes.
All right. Now, Minister, as I mentioned, it's more about the revenue that Vanuatu bring to this nation in different programs, but we concentrate more on the citizenship program. I understand that the citizenship program has a threshold of 500 applicants to hit one stage. Then the government of Vanuatu needs to decide on introducing a new program. So first, we're talking about how is the government going with regard to revenues being earned under the passport sales. So are we achieving budget, and how does it compare with the 2022 figures?
Okay, so in essence, basically I announced during my parliament speech that we had picked up 25% of revenue forecasted for this period already at the time of the budget announcement. So all of us know that when we came in on November the 4th, 2022, on the 5th we got hit by a cyber attack, and thereafter there was the announcement from the European Union that the visa waiver for Vanuatu passport holders into the session area of the European Union was suspended. And then the Prime Minister led a delegation over to Europe to advocate for some kind of understanding. And obviously they were willing to let us be on suspension up until maybe February 2024, if I remember correctly. And that was to give us the time for us to make the necessary adjustments to be less of a risk as a country with a citizenship program compared to other countries of the world. So because of that, the forecast was that there was going to be a steep decline in the revenues coming from the citizenship programs. And so we have been operating on the assumption that there will be deficit financing in this current year, which is what I announced on the floor of Parliament. And basically we were saying that there was going to be equivalent of 3.5 billion Vadu deficit. And that's what I announced, because we had forecasted that there was going to be a decline in citizenship revenues that has been relied on in the past few years until the suspension of the visa waiver into the European Union. Since then, there has been some more announcements made by European Union. And so basically where it's at right now is that there's some innovative products being considered and introduced, but they have yet to be spoken about as public decisions. And in the recent past, the Prime Minister did gazette an order with the government gazette, which allows for another product, which is investment government bond option, and there's been some controversy in the papers as to what it was going to do in terms of implications on the current programs. And I have appointed a task force that is going to provide advice to me so that we can slowly understand what the implications are, so that we can harmonize the different honorary citizenship programs that are on the market. So I can't tell you right now where we're at, because it's we all know that there's been a hit in terms of what we have to offer as a citizenship program compared to other countries of the world who are also offering citizenship programs.
So, Minister, you confirmed that there's a big decline on the sales of citizenship of Vanuatu.
We're now into the first quarter of 2023. So I should be getting my reports about now as to how we're tracking in relation to revenue forecasts, and that could be a decline, but I've yet to see the data, and so I can't make a real concrete comment. But the assumption was that there was going to be a decline in citizenship program revenues, and that we would have to be able to look for other ways of raising revenue for the government.
So the government of the day is under pressure in regards to this program, and as you mentioned that Vanuatu needs to find some ways. How the government will manage to get to that and meet its end of having revenue back to the country through such programs?
See, what we have to remember is the different ways of meeting the budget requirements for the country. If there is not enough revenue, the question is, how do we finance the short cap? And it's usually called deficit. So basically what it means is that for the 1 year that we are in operation, if I don't have sufficient cash flow to meet the forecasted revenues, then I go into deficit, which means that I can borrow money from the money market, which is basically what I do is issue government bonds, or the Reserve Bank issues it and transmits the funds into government to operate for the year. So when from year to year it becomes debt if it's compounded. For a single year it's called deficit. So we were expecting that there was going to be a deficit finance for this year, 3.5 billion Vatu worth of it, which means I'm going to raise government bonds to meet the shortfall. But we haven't gone through the financial year yet, so we are still hopeful that we can deal with the issues that have been identified as the binding constraints, the inhibiting factors for the economy to grow. When we forecast the budget, we focus it based on forecasted growth rate. So obviously we have a balanced budget framework, which means that if we don't grow the economy, then we cannot raise the same expected level of revenue, and then we go into deficit for that year. So the IMF Article 4 mission that came early in the year identified for me as the manager of the economy of the Republic the areas wherein we needed to make sure that we intervened. We needed to manage one, Air Vanuatu. So Air Vanuatu is a very important part of the opportunities for growth in the economy of the Republic of Vanuatu. And as you know, we have been doing things. There's been a lot of complaints in the recent past, especially in regards to scheduling and in regards to the fact that our one jet has had some difficulties with the flap. But we had a recent shareholders meeting, and all I can say on radio is that we all came out of it very hopeful. So being hopeful means that there should be some announcements in the very near future by Air Vanuatu, which then allows us to be able to overcome the hurdle of making sure that we are consistent in terms of delivering people to the expected destinations, and also in terms of possibly growing other destinations. So let's wait for Air Vanuatu to make those announcements once they're ready. But I can say to the public that we are very hopeful that we can deal with that one issue, which is Air Vanuatu. The other issue that was identified by the Article 4 mission is the labor force issue. And the private sector, through the Chamber of Commerce and Industries, have been advocating that their skilled and trained and equipped people have been living in the recent past for seasonal work. And so all of us know that during the lockdown periods between 2020 and 2022, there was hardly any tourism activity in Vanuatu, and many people opted to go and find work in other places. And we are very happy that that happened, because otherwise our economy would have ground to a halt. But remittances have been flowing into Vanuatu because people made the choice to go and work overseas. So what we did promise, and I did mention this in my budget speech, that we were going to be allowing for 1,500 workers to come in, and that they would be able to take up jobs in managerial, supervisorial, and technical positions, as long as the going concerns or the companies or the entities went through the legitimate screening, which is the Chamber of Commerce and Industries. And I think everybody's been privy to the recent posts on social media that already companies in Vanuatu are bringing workers in, and they're bringing in, there was one person who's going to be a captain of one of the boats that travels into island in Vanuatu, and she's come through that program. So I can say to the public that we are dealing with that issue of labor shortage, and the fact is that every citizen of Vanuatu has the freedom of choice. Every citizen of Vanuatu has freedom of movement, and every citizen of Vanuatu who wants to go and work in Australia will not be prevented from going, as long as they will not run away from professional jobs, government jobs, because it was basically designed for people who were unemployed in Vanuatu. So as long as you're following the normal procedures, nobody should stop you from going to work in Australia or New Zealand. Also, for those who have been saying that you cannot find workers in Vanuatu to fit your level of managerial or supervisorial or technical skills, it's now open. So the business is on for you to go and find your workers from whichever country, as long as they do their medicals, they do their police clearances, they fit all the other requirements, and basically the process is on, and the process of granting residency permits and work permits only takes 5 days, as long as you've been screened by the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So that's the second thing that we were supposed to deal with, was the labor. The third thing that we were pointed to as by the Article 4 mission was to make sure that we manage the debt. And so basically that's an ongoing program, knowing that we are trying to get out of lockdown periods wherein all the economies of the world were struggling, and also in the fact that we had also been supporting the economy through all kinds of stimulus programs. And that's basically, some people thought I had announced the third stimulus package, which I didn't. I was reporting on the stimulus packages that has been delivered by the two previous governments before the government led by Honorable Alato Ishmael Sakau Maukoro. And so I did inform everyone that there was some people who were expecting to receive funds from the small business grants, that because of the cyber attack on November 5th, 2022, all the data had been wiped, and that I was not going to go back there, that we were not going to go and look for those 2,000 or so small businesses that still had not received their expected small business grant support, because now business is open. So people can go back and do their normal activities, and there is really no need at the moment, because you have to also remember that as part of the twin cyclone response, we have also opened up for for business licenses to be paid later, for road taxes to be paid later, for value-added tax filings to be at a different schedule, and that all means that people have a bit more cash flow at the moment until they can pick up and go. And so those are the elements that have been introduced after the TC, Judy and TC Kevin.
Mr. Thank you very much for that. Now, we going back to the citizenship program, as we know that Vanuatu has introduced the Vanuatu citizenship by investment when it started off a couple of years ago. And then we have the Vanuatu Capital Investment Program. And then we have this one, which is the government bond option regulation that you mentioned earlier. Now, can you explain why the new proposal are better than the DSP? And there have been some comparative analysis done that suggest that Vanuatu will be worse off financially. You mentioned that earlier. Considering the fact that passport sale revenues have fallen short of budget in 2022, but why would the government now implement new program that studies have shown will contribute less revenue back to Vanuatu?
All I can say that I'm waiting for the task force that I've appointed to be able to advise me on how best to proceed going forward. There's a few initiatives, and that it is probably best for me to wait until I get the real technical advice, because while the government investment bond option has been gazetted, I don't think at the moment it has been implemented, because the mechanisms for the issuance of bonds is not yet there. So my task force is still working, and once it's ready, they'll come back to me and make sure that we have the necessary mechanisms to be able to operationalize it. Of course, what they will also do is do the analysis for us to be able to compare what has been published in the paper to see if it is truly the case that it's going to impact on revenue in the way that has been written about in the paper. So I'll wait for my task force to advise me on that.
Now, the process, Minister, the process of getting to that, did both the SIP and the bond program were endorsed by COM, and did they really follow the guidelines of the Reserve Bank of Vanuatu?
The Reserve Bank of Vanuatu has already got the process of issuing government bonds, and that's standard operation. So I already told you that when I had announced the budget with the expected deficit, I have already issued request to the Reserve Bank of Vanuatu to issue the normal process of putting together the bond advertisements, and that's ongoing. But with regards to this new citizenship program by investment bond option, the mechanisms are yet to be developed.
So how does it work exactly? Because it's a bond from the government of Vanuatu, so meaning that the applicant has to take money from the government of Vanuatu to pay for its citizenship and then repaid later on?
So in theory, what the bond option does is allow for people who are from overseas to give funds to the Vanuatu government, for the Vanuatu government to use with the expectation that the Vanuatu government will repay at some later date. So it's basically like a loan, and it's basically like a interest-free loan for a period of time.
How much are we talking about here?
And that's what I can't say, because the how do you put it? The Reserve Bank mechanisms have yet to be developed. After that, we will look at the quantum in terms of how much money. We will also look at what terms, how long, and of course there are questions also about the how do you put it, the currency in which the bond options issued. So right now, every bond that we issue is in Vanuatu Fatu. So that means we don't have any currency risk. So whoever is buying Vanuatu Fatu from overseas, let's say from the US dollar perspective, the risk is at the person who is purchasing the bond. So we will pay in Vanuatu. So if we were to issue the bonds in, say, Australian dollar, then there is a foreign exchange risk. Because if the Australian dollar versus the Vanuatu goes one way, it'll be in our favor. If it goes the other way, it's going to be against us. So there is always a currency risk when you come to issue in different currencies other than the Vanuatu. Also, when people are looking at whether or not they should provide government money to be able to work with, there's always the question of what they call national sovereign credit rating. So credit rating is where normally the credit rating agencies like Standards and Poor's comes in and assesses the country and says your credit rating is a junk bond or a minus B or A plus, and based on that you can count on different people who want to invest in your government bonds, feeling secure about basically giving you a loan. So the loan is then able to indicate whether or not your interests are high or low depending on what your risk rating is. So the understanding that I have from the bond option is that we will be getting it at zero interest. So that zero interest means that we do not need a credit rating agency such as Standards and Poor's to come and check Vanuatu's credit rating, because these people who want to get Vanuatu passports think Vanuatu government is a good risk. That's why you would give the funds to us at zero interest. So we will wait and see and hear from my task force. Once the task force delivers me the report, I will know what to do, and they will iron out all the issues in relation to the Reserve Bank, in relation to the legal frameworks, in relation to normal standard operating procedures when it comes to issuance of bonds and then the redeeming of bonds once the maturity date has been reached. They'll come to me with it.
So, Minister, as you said, zero benefit, zero interest, zero interest is like a catch that government will definitely have more applicants coming to Vanuatu because of that.
Zero interest means the person who is issuing the Vanuatu government money must have confidence in the Vanuatu government. Because let's say I'm a credit risk and I go to the bank. The bank will say, you are very high risk, so we will charge you very high interest. No, we'll charge you 12%. But if they think I'm a really good risk, meaning I will definitely pay back, I will definitely earn enough money to honor my debt, they will reduce the interest rate. So when we're getting zero interest, it means that these people are lending us their money at zero interest. Is the best terms you can ever get on any market.
So the risk is not in our field.
The risk,
it's more of the applicants.
They take the risk, yes. They take the foreign exchange risk, and they take the interest risk, because we're not going to pay them any interest. We'll pay them zero interest. We'll just redeem their coupon at their face value after a time period.
So, Minister, it will involve a lot of money. We're talking about millions of Vatu paying for Vanuatu citizenship here. Now, how does Vanuatu, through FIU, will go through does the relevant work to make sure that those people applying through this program, they are genuine, they are clean in record, so that they can becoming citizen of this country, not tarnishing the reputation of Vanuatu, as we heard lately in one of the British newspapers stating about one country sending its spies through this program.
Basically, everybody who's then going to be allowed to give Vanuatu funds through the investment option or a bond option will have been cleared by VFIU. So the processes will be that they will do their normal due diligence checks. The risks, as we said before, in terms of foreign currency risk is on their side. The risk in terms of interest rate risk is also on their side. And the procedures will be set up so that we'll follow all the normal protocols, which is you have to have been cleared by Financial Intelligence Unit before you can be part of this.
Minister, this program, the government generate a lot of money, but it has to come through some agents. Vanuatu used to have citizenship agents here in the country and also abroad selling Vanuatu's citizenship. Now, but lately the government has decided that it has to have a master agent. Now, so this master agent been appointed under the SIP and the bond program, but if so, has it complied with the tender process under the CDP?
It's a good question, and I can just tell you that until I hear from my task force in terms of what the legal implications are, I will not comment, because normally anything, yes, we all know what the tender rules are in Vanuatu. And if it's over and above 10 million Vatu, you need to go through a normal central tender process. But that's left up to the task force to advise me on in relation to this master agent appointment. Again, obviously, it's a different product altogether. It's not like we're selling or we're hiring people to come and deliver services for the Vanuatu government. Usually what happens with these agents is that they meet their own costs, and we have expected revenue earnings based on how many people they process, how many passports we issue. They have been giving us the funds. So I don't know what has happened in the past in terms of the appointment of master agents and the like, and if they have not been pulled up so far in relation to central tender board requirements, I imagine that it would go the same way in this, unless somebody alerts me to the fact that it's a breach of tender rules. So I will wait until my task force has explained to me what's going on.
But there's an interest of the master plan and can be chosen by the government going through the tender. Now, under the Contract and Tenders Act, the minister who signs any contract is obliged to ensure that a full fiscal review of the contract is undertaken. And now, if it happens, was it done by the government?
The appointment of the master agent in relation to the government investment bond option. As I said, I will wait for my task force to inform me whether or not due process was followed, and if everything is ready to go. Because as far as I'm aware, let's say the systems are not really set up yet to make it functional. The Reserve Bank is not in a position to receive any funds at the moment. I have not issued any prospectus or request for prospectus to issue bonds. Only the Minister of Finance can ask the Reserve Bank to issue a prospectus for issuance of bonds. I've only asked in relation to the normal proceedings, which is about raising revenue from the local subscribers, domestic subscribers.
So, Minister, the idea of bringing in a master plan, what happened, a master agent, sorry, not the master plan, but master agent. Minister, now what will happen to the existing local agents or any individual agents that is doing the same thing of selling Vanuatu citizenship?
I think what we need to do is to have a clear understanding of what the market is for honorary citizenship programs. Apparently, there is residency programs which have been going on for some time. Apparently, there's different citizenship programs depending on what is offered. So, if obviously it looks like, and that there is different market segments wanting different products, which can then attract different clientele. So, for example, we did pass legislation back in I'm not sure now, maybe 2021, for residency options, or real estate option, for real estate option. So that we passed legislation for, but I am not aware of citizenship program taking off under the real estate options. So the legislation was passed, but it was never effected because there's a market analysis that would have said there are citizens wanting to come to Vanuatu under the real estate option. But obviously that hasn't taken off because maybe the market dynamics have shifted. Maybe the people who were expected to be taking up that kind of real estate option didn't see Vanuatu as an attractive market anymore. So what I can say is that it seems like there is an international market for honorary citizenship programs, and then there is different segments of that market interested in different aspects of becoming Vanuatu passport holders. As we said before, the passport holders in the past were interested in going into European Union, into the Schengen area, visa-free. As soon as that was suspended, it impacted on that segment of the market. So we would have seen a reduction in the demand for citizenship under that program to go into the European Union area visa-free. And now these others that have been developed and are being developed is in response to what is seen to be a segment of the market.
And the government is trying its best to make it happen.
Obviously, it's been I was one of those people who was really against the citizenship program, and I am really happy that I was overridden, because if my position had been upheld, we wouldn't have had a citizenship program, and we wouldn't have been able to weather the storms in the past few years, because it's been the citizenship program that has enabled Vanuatu government to have revenues, and we're not in debt distress because of citizenship program. So it's been good for Vanuatu.
Apart from citizenship program, any other ideas that the government could also make it as a program to bring investors to Vanuatu or bring more revenue to Vanuatu apart from the citizenship sale?
Yeah, we have had legislation which established for there to be the medical marijuana and industrial cannabis. So basically, that legislation is passed. Basically, it's up to the relevant ministry and the relevant departments to be able to have the mechanisms to market that and bring investors in. And I've yet to see what the real impact is in terms of revenue raising. But that's definitely one new initiative that's been taken in the recent past. So we're still expecting that there will be people coming in to invest in a new area, which is medical marijuana and industrial hemp. So medical cannabis and industrial hemp.
Now, Minister, you touched on the latest issue of Air Vanuatu as well, that waiting for it has more play its role to bring more money to Vanuatu as well, and the government is doing its best on that. So in regards to in the past government, the government always subsidized Air Vanuatu and always bringing financial aid to for the running of the airline. Since this year, since the new government comes in, we don't hear anything. But are you in position now to announce that the government will financially assist Air Vanuatu with a grant like the past government was 300 million Vatu? Now, with this new government, what is the money played down to assist Air Vanuatu's operation?
Look, Air Vanuatu has been a difficult company. It's been difficulty for some time, so it has quite a bit substantial amount of debt. But what I have asked the board of directors and the CEO is to present to me an ability to make profit on an annual basis. And once you start to make profit, debt is possible to walk through. So you can trade out of your debts. And the government is definitely interested in the recent information that we have received. And as I said, we came out of a shareholders meeting very hopeful And because of that, we're expecting the announcements to be made by Air Vanuatu. Once the announcements are made, then I will be able to make commitments thereafter. Because usually it's about your ability to show a profit year to year as you trade, and then you can walk through your debts, because debts can be supported by the Vanuatu as a sovereign nation. And we already spoke about the possibility of bonds being issued by people who want to become citizens of Vanuatu. So this is the way that government can raise money at very low interest or zero interest to be able to offset some of the debts by state-owned enterprises in like Air Vanuatu. Obviously, we're going into May with the expectation that the next parliamentary sitting will be able to approve or legalize the Government Business Enterprise Unit Bill. And the Government Business Enterprise Unit Bill, which has been with the Ad Hoc Committee of Parliament for some time. Once that's passed, then it enables us to have a lot more confidence in the private businesses owned by government, that they will be operating on commercial principles, and that they will be making profits, and they will be paying dividends, and we can then work out how the long-term debt can be supported or can be worked through.
Minister, in regards to a project that Air Vanuatu has involved in the past years, and the government of Vanuatu, through Air Vanuatu, has deposited a big amount of money to a company to purchase Airbus aircraft and to buy the A220s. Now, what is the status of that deposit? Are we losing out of it, or are we going to reclaim it, or what is happening?
Basically, we are following all the diplomatic channels to be able to assert our claim that we haven't lost the money, because we did issue real money and we didn't get any planes. So,
how much are we talking about here?
I'm not able to state the exact amount, but it would be quite substantial. And so we were expecting, of course, a certain number of planes. And it may be that we have already delivered sufficient funds to release at least one plane. So those channels of diplomacy have been opened, and that communication is going through to Airbus, which Airbus is owned by basically all the countries of Europe. So obviously you know who we're talking about in terms of diplomatic conversations happening between the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the relevant members of the European Union. And if that does not come to fruition, then we still have the legal recourse, which means we go and hire a law firm to basically assert our claim in any relevant jurisdiction where the contracts can be scrutinized by a court of law. So while we have yet to receive any planes, we did deliver real money. So we believe that we still have claims that can be realized at some later date. But we have to go through first diplomatic channels, and then where necessary go through a legal litigation process.
Now, the government of Vanuatu has recently announced also that Vanuatu will have more Boeings and other aircrafts. In regards to the current financial position of Air Vanuatu, is it healthy for Air Vanuatu to get all those aircrafts?
Okay, so basically there's national commitment, because Air Vanuatu is part of our sovereign identity. Also, the decision to maintain Air Vanuatu is because we believe that in times of trouble, we have one airline, Air Vanuatu, to call on to be the important link into international markets. So we had incidents in the past where, for example, Air New Zealand wasn't flying into Vanuatu because of complaints about the tarmac. And then at one time, then New Zealand wanted to come in to pick up RIC workers. The then minister or responsible said, you cannot come in, only to make money, you have to be able to provide services to us in times of difficulty. So we know Air Vanuatu is for us in times of difficulty. Whatever situation we're going through as a country, we can always count on Air Vanuatu to be a vital link between us and our neighboring countries. So Vanuatu has always invested money into Air Vanuatu because of its sovereign pride, because of the understanding that in times of trouble we will count on Air Vanuatu to help us. And so basically that's the reality. We are committed to Air Vanuatu. We will make sure that we back up Air Vanuatu. We will thread through our difficulties. That doesn't mean that we're going to prevent any other carrier from coming in. I was there with the Minister for Trade to welcome Virgin to come in, and he's going to come in with 5 flights a week. And the Minister for Trade said, look, I would like you to make 1 flight to Santo as well. So it doesn't mean that we're protecting the market for Air Vanuatu, but we are committed to supporting Air Vanuatu to trade out of difficulties, manage their debt load, and be able to perform as we expect any airline to perform in Vanuatu. We've had some really hard times in the last couple of years, 2020 to 2022. There was hardly any business. A lot of airlines around the world basically shut down. And so we know where we came from, but we also look forward to a better future. And this government is committed to working with the board, management, and the staff of Air Vanuatu to make sure that we get beyond this situation and begin to show profit and begin to put up Air Vanuatu as a thing to be proud of.
Minister of Finance, Honorable John Salong, you also a shareholder of Air Vanuatu, including the Prime Minister and other ministers and other ministries. Now, in regards to the financial accounts of Air Vanuatu, they are only available up until the 2020. So when will the 2021 results be published on their website or your minister's website?
When we receive them. Most of the time we ask all the government businesses to be able to deliver their audited financial statements on time. And we will be, after the passage of the government business enterprise unit bill, we will be a lot more, we will be empowered to be a lot more strict in ensuring that the audited financial statements are delivered on time. And also we will be monitoring them in accordance with strict standards set out by a law. We know that we have been trying to pass the bill for some time, because a lot of the issues in relation to government-owned businesses have been run down not because of anything but political interferences. So political interferences in companies result in bad results, and it's not very easy to fix problems. You cannot plant a seed and expect the fruit to be ready for you at the same time. Usually you plant a seed and you see the fruits a few years thereafter. So when you see the results of Air Vanuatu performance now, you must remember that the seeds were planted 10 years ago. The mismanagement, the political interference, the inability to focus on commercial imperatives were 10 years ago. This is the result of Air Vanuatu now. So for people now to go and expect that everything will be fixed immediately, you got to remember that this government is focused. This government is basically trying to clean up, and Air Vanuatu is a big part of our agenda to clean up. Make sure that the systems are set up properly so that we can expect our companies to operate on commercial principles, be able to deliver audited financial statements on time, and be able to pay dividends.
So, Minister, you're a strong person as an individual here in Vanuatu, a fighter of justice, a fighter of accountability. And you mentioned the involvement of politics in those state enterprise that belongs to the government or run by the government of Vanuatu. How you as an individual and the minister responsible finance in Vanuatu can make sure that the political influence is not there, so that Vanuatu can move forward in future, not for this generation, but a better generation in coming years?
Yes, so basically my influence is financial. So, for example, if decisions are being brought to me that I can see have been basically politically driven, I apply financial principles, I apply economic principles, and I can say no. And when I say no, it means you have to go and think again. So, for example, when it comes to debt, if you want me to finance the debt of Air Vanuatu, what I want to see is a plan of how we're going to trade out of our difficulties. So that means you have to apply discipline in terms of how you manage a company as you would. It's about how much revenue you're expecting to earn, and it's about what are your fixed costs and what are your variable costs, and you have to work with your variable costs and show to me a plan which shows profitability. Otherwise, I don't finance you. That's how I make sure that things are driven not by political imperatives but by commercial and economic and financial principles.
Minister of Finance, thank you very much. We're going to end our discussion for today, but first, before you go, we want to focus on the the cash transfer that introduced by the government through you. Now, what is the status of that, and why the government want to introduce such a program?
Okay, so thank you very much. In a very short time we have, basically I want to say that Vanuatu is putting a lot of money as part of this government response relation to the TC, Judy and Kevin. And the analysis is that when we put out, let's say, dried goods, support to the households, it is not very efficient. So we're talking about 36% of the actual value going into real goods delivered to the households, and 64% of the actual value spent on logistics costs. So that is not a good place to be. And the non-government organizations during the COVID lockdown periods did test out the process of cash transfers, and they were able to deliver to socially disadvantaged households, which numbered to 4,000, probably 5 to 6 transactions. And so it would, let's say, 24,000 transactions, which was delivered directly to these 4,000 households altogether. And we can now look at the figures. So the figures show to me that it's a lot more efficient than what we do currently, which is to do 1 push, 2 push, 3 push by delivering goods, meaning rations. So the figures look a little bit better. It looks like they were able to get 56% of their value to the households, and they were able to use 44% of the value in their transaction cost, which was basically supporting the NGOs delivering it and supporting the computer system that was driving it. So where we are at right now is we have had more than 4 meetings with this cash transfer consortium, and basically I'm the driver. And what I have said to everyone, and I'm going to say again on radio, is that we're going to be changing the system, and the system is no longer going to be about delivery of dried goods to the people, but it's going to be about delivery of what we can say digital money to the households. So we have estimated that there's 66,000 households in Vanuatu, and the 66,000 households in Vanuatu should be able to receive digital money directly into their national IDs. So I'm encouraging everybody out there who's listening now, who understands English, that if you as a household head have not got a national ID, it is important that you contact your area administrator and make sure that you have a national ID, because we are going to be pushing a different system which will allow for funds to be digitally transferred to your national ID. So the process is going to be owned by Vanuatu Post, So Vanuatu Post is going to own a system that is now developed, and the system is going to enable us to transact digital currency directly to heads of households. The heads of households have to have valid national IDs. They have to go back and re-register with the area administrator, and the area administrator will then register them onto this system with Vanuatu Post. And then the system will spit out a PIN code, 8-digit PIN code, and only the head of the household that is being verified and the area administrator will know that 8-digit PIN code. So once all the vendors have been registered, and the vendors could be churches, the vendors could be shops, the vendors could be schools, then you can basically transact your digital currency, whatever I have transacted from the Minister of Finance to you as part of cyclone response, and you can use that to transfer to vendors. The vendors have also need to be registered. The vendors need to have access to internet. The vendors need to have access to a smartphone, and then they can take your digital currency from your national ID by first identifying that yes, you are the person, putting the picture up, taking a picture of your national ID and putting her up to check it with the database that is going to be with Vanuatu Post. Second, to take a picture of you alive, knowing that it's been verified that you are the real person, that compares to the picture in the national ID and verifies with the database that will be with Vanuatu Post. And then they will put in the amount which you want to transact to whoever the vendor is, and then you put in your PIN code, and they will then send the money in digital format to the vendor. And then the vendor will work with the Vanuatu Post in making sure that they have a bank account so that the digital money can be then converted to real money, which will be sent into their bank account. So it's going to be a big shift. It's going to be a dynamic shift. And if you're listening now, look forward, because there's going to be change coming. Change is going to be in that we are not going to continue to push in the future with this dry goods response. We will be changing so that people can receive digital money or cash transfers in time. So just imagine that if we are getting a new cyclone alert that's yellow light, and we expect the pathway to hit a certain number of households in a particular part of Vanuatu, and we know those numbers of households, we know those heads of those households, we know the national IDs of the heads of those households, we know the area administrators, we know the vendors for that area, we can transact funds. So we can say, okay, I'm going to send you 2,000 Vatu right now, and you all receive 2,000 Vatu. Go and buy screws and screw your houses so that when the cyclone comes, you are not going to be as damaged as you should be. So it's possible for us to become proactive, and we can move ahead instead of always waiting for the cyclone to pass before we provide relief. We can be ahead of schedule. So this is going to be the new shift. We are working on it now. Our working group is continuing to meet. We are now in a position where we want to pilot it on one of the smaller communities around Efate, and once we're ready to go, we will do it. And I'm expecting that there will be no second push. The second push will be in terms of cash transfers. So everybody out there listening, if you're an area administrator, make sure that your disaster committee has identified all the heads of households for your area, and make sure that they have their national IDs, because that is going to be the key avenue for us to be able to transact funds. So the system is developed. The vendor platform is set, ready to go. The registration of the heads of household platform is ready to go. The management platform that is going to allow for Vanuatu Post to be able to manage all the information so that they can be able to get the accountabilities to finance and to the bank is all ready to go, and it's about us going to and test it. So what's that space? Cash transfers coming.
So meaning that at the moment there is no time frame for implementation?
The time frame is fast.
All right, very soon. All right, Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic in Vanuatu, John Salong, Thank you very much for taking this time, joining 96.3 Buzz FM and answering questions in regards to Vanuatu's financial situation and programs that Vanuatu can benefit from to build the economy of this country and other projects, including Vanuatu. Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kisi, and thank you for the audience. Thank you.
You're tuning into Lunch with Kizzy on Buzz 96.3 FM. Lunch with Kizzy, proudly brought to you by the Vanuatu National Provident Fund. Save today, enjoy tomorrow.